Shannon.
Hi there, so we are presenting today the effects of stimulated altitude on 100-row Mac times with my partners,
Lindsay Johnson.
And Abigail Foreman.
and Allison Fernandez. Let's get started. Now into our introduction, altitude training and its effects. Altitude training involves exercising in, living in, otherwise spending time in environments with a reduced level of oxygen, also called hypoxia. Aimed primarily at athletes, especially in endurance sports, to enhance their performance both at altitude and sea levels. They usually train at conditions typically 1,600 to 2,400 meters above sea level. The reason behind athletes training at high altitudes is because it increases red blood cell production and cardiovascular efficiency. Body adapts to lower oxygen availability by increasing the production of red blood cells, fluctuated by the EPO hormone. Enhanced oxygen carrying capacity of blood, leading to improved oxygen delivery to the muscles during physical activity. Cardiovascular adaptations include more efficient oxygen uptake and distribution by the heart to the lungs. The most obvious benefits of athletes training at high altitudes are significant improvements in VO2 max, the maximum rate of oxygen consumption during intense exercise. VO2 max is critical determinant of endurance performance in sports like long distance running, cycling, and rowing. Studies, as you can see, have documented increased aerobic capacity endurance following altitude training. There are many studies that are examining how altitude training is affecting aerobic performance. However, there are very few that are targeted towards anaerobic performance. This study is designed to measure the effects of training under hypoxic conditions on short-duration, high-intensity exercises. Anaerobic glycolysis is a predominant energy pathway used in high-intensity, short-duration activities like a 100-meter row, which we will be using in our study. Most research on altitude training focuses on aerobic endurance, with less known about its impact on anaerobic performance. This study seeks to provide insights into how altitude training might benefit or hinder short-duration, high-intensity athletic events. Findings could have implications for training protocols across various sports that rely on anaerobic energy systems, especially young athletes.
Now on to our methodology. For our participants, we had 20 subjects who were asked to volunteer for the 2-day duration of this test. We had 10 males and 10 females in order to add dimension to our analysis post-study. The participants must be between the ages of 18 to 22 with no underlying health conditions.
Okay, so for our experimental design, we were looking for any differences in anaerobic performance due to different altitude changes. And this is a controlled experimental study, and we use this using a paired sample t-test. The independent variable in our study was the altitudes that changed from 6,000 feet to sea level, and the dependent variable in our study was the 100-meter row times that we were testing. And this trial was specifically focused on the change of altitude having any impact on anaerobic performance as compared to aerobic performance. And each trial in both altitude settings was recorded for each participant, and this would be included in the analysis to see if we had any significant difference in anaerobic performance on altitude. Okay, so for our procedure, we had 20 subjects, which were 10 male, 10 female college students, and then we brought them into the lab on 2 testing days, which were approximately 48 hours away from each other. And then we would bring them in, and then we would make them do a consent form before they started any kind of testing, and then we would bring the participants into the altitude chamber blind of the altitude. They would not know if it was at 6,000 feet or sea level, and they would do a warm-up first consisting of 10 minutes on the exercise bikes at a low resistance, and once they completed their warm-up to get their heart rate up and to get ready for the actual full exertion test, they would do a 100-meter sprint on the row machine at a moderate resistance, and after the test, before releasing our participant back to class or exiting the lab, we make them do a cool down, which was about 5 minutes on the same exercise bike at a low resistance, just to get their heart rate down a little bit before they left.
For our statistical analysis, we use SPSS to compare our results using a paired sample t-test along with the mean and standard deviation. The mean and standard deviations were calculated for the male and female subgroups within the total population of our participants. The genders were analyzed separately for the paired sample t-test. For example, the paired sample t-test for the males compared the altitude at sea level to the altitude at 6,000 feet to see if there was a significant difference in means among the males. This was done for females as well. Now it's time to review our results. For our female participants, when rowing on the machine at sea level and an altitude of 6,000 feet, the paired sample t-test showed a p-value at p equals 0.343, which indicates that there is not a significant difference in means for the performance times for the females. Now looking at our male participants at the same sea level and 6,000 feet of testing, p-value was 0.678. This p-value indicates that there is also not a significant difference in means. Now it's time to look at our mean and standard deviation for our males and females and our total population. For the females at sea level, the mean was 22.50 plus or minus 2.17, and at the altitude of 6,000 feet was 22.80 plus or minus 1.93. This shows a 0.30 difference in mean, which shows a lack of statistical difference. When looking at the males, the mean at sea level was 19.80 plus or minus 1.81, and at 6,000 feet was 19.90 plus or minus 1.45. This shows a 0.10 second difference in mean, which also shows a lack of statistical difference. When looking at our total population, the mean at sea level was 22.15 plus or minus 2.39, and at 6,000 feet was 21.35 plus or minus 2.23. This shows a 0.20 second difference in mean, which shows a lack of statistical difference overall.
Here's a quick summary of our conclusion. Our objective of this study was to investigate effects of stimulated altitude on 100-meter row times in healthy individuals. Aerobic versus anaerobic. Altitude training improves aerobic capacity, but unclear impact on anaerobic power. Consistency with other studies. This aligns with research showing no significant change in anaerobic power in adolescent runners. Statistical analysis. No significant difference in rowing times at sea level and 6,000 feet. Implication. Adds to knowledge on altitude's impacts on short duration anaerobic exercises. Thank you for your attention, and peace out. Bye! Is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
So now, watch this. We're gonna